We're so excited to have the Fox sideline reporter for the Vikings-Bears game this Sunday at noon, Megan Olivi. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I love your setup. It's very official with the Vikings back there. Yeah. I love it.
Well, we try really hard around here to make sure everything looks good. I hope that you're bringing your layers because it's a balmy -9 today.
I could not believe that. When I looked at the weather, I was like, this can't be right. I think this morning when I checked it, it was really early. It said -18. I'm like, what is going on? I don't know how you guys do this, but thank God it's a dome. I appreciate that.
It's the one thing I think about every time. I'm like, it doesn't matter what it feels like outside because it will be warm inside. Exactly. And speaking of, it's the last game of the season for the Vikings. We get to have a home game, which is so great, but it's an opponent that the Vikings have seen already this season. It's only 3 weeks ago that the Vikings beat the Bears at Soldier Field, but the Bears looked a lot different. They had, 19 players out with COVID. So what kind of a Bears team are we expecting to see in this matchup?
Yeah, I think a more put together one, but then we saw just yesterday, Justin Fields tested positive, where he went on the COVID protocol list, I should say. And so you're going to see Andy Dalton at the helm in the quarterback position. So I think the Bears had hoped that they were having, their full squad in the way they wanted it for one final game this season. And then of course you've got Andy Dalton, who is a veteran of the game, who's been helping Justin Fields throughout his, rookie year. He also works, of course, with Nick really closely as well. So, I think the Bears are coming into this in the same way in which the Vikings are, with something to prove. They want to go out with a win. And, when there's not a playoff game on the line, it's really just about pride and being able to have one final celebration in the locker room. And I really think that that's what both teams are coming in. But for the Bears, they are more put together, certainly, than when the Vikings first saw them this season.
Yeah, you said it. Dalvin Cook this week saying that no game is meaningless. And so when these guys approach these types of situations, how do you expect the starters to be in? Are we going to see like a full roster of guys out there?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of different things they're playing for. And, I work with Aqib Talib, and Aqib, played in this league for a very long time. He's a Super Bowl champion. And he said he's been on teams like this, teams that aren't going to the postseason. And what they're playing for is essentially their contract for the next year. They're playing to get, career statistics. And it kind of touches upon the coaches too. They're also playing for those things as well. So I think these players are still looking to prove something. And whether that means they're setting up what their paychecks may be in the next couple of seasons, they're still looking to go out on a high note, whether that's in terms of money or whether that's in terms of statistics.
Yeah, last game that the Vikings and Bears played wasn't the best performance by the Vikings offense. And a lot of that has to do with the Bears pass rush, Akiem Hicks, and what he's able to do to get in the backfield. Do you expect much of the same in this matchup, being able to, or what do the Vikings really need to do to be able to give Kirk the time back there?
Well, it's a good question, but I think they definitely, they've got to have their eye on this Bears defense. If the Bears have, a most successful part of their game, it is their defense. What Sean Desai has been able to do with them has really been incredible. They've got big time players there. And I think that's something that the Vikings really need to get past. You're right. They need to give Kirk the time there. They need to give their receivers time to get open. They need to give Dalvin the holes, but it's a lofty task for this final game when you are playing a team in the Bears with such a good defense. In terms of offensive matchups, you can talk about a lot of things, but that's where the Bears really shine. And I think it's where, they've really made people notice throughout the season. Maybe they weren't winning games, but their defense was still making people go, oh, wow. And I think that's certainly the number one thing for the Vikings to look out for this week.
Is there a matchup we haven't discussed that you really have your eye on this week?
It's a good question. And it's actually one that we're going to ask. We like to ask the teams. It's something that myself, Aqib, and Gus Johnson, because sometimes the coaches, coordinators, and players, they have like a different outlook on who we should look forward to. And they like to give their guys shine. So, I think it's going to be interesting no matter what. I will say you want to look for, in terms of the Bears offense, you want to look at guys like Montgomery and Mooney, who always seem to be doing something, getting yards somehow. So we want to see those matchups with those two players in mind, specifically for the Bears offense. But I just think it's going to be It's going to be interesting. And I think it's going to be a game that is played with a lot more heart and a lot more seriously than maybe people are giving it credit for at this point. So before the game, it's easy to say, hey, there's not really anything to look forward to. They're not playing for postseason. They're not playing for anything, whatever. I actually think that the exact opposite holds true when you come to not just two teams like this who had such lofty hopes for the season, and they have such talented athletes. I mean, look at what the Vikings are working with. It's incredible. Yeah. And to not be going to the postseason, has to impact them in so many different ways. And so I think that really this is going to be a great game with a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of heat on this matchup as well.
Well, that's good to hear, because we definitely need to bring the heat up here in Minnesota at US Bank Stadium this weekend. But, it's funny you say that, because I do think that they are, they're playing for a lot. They are playing for a lot of bragging rights, as you said, the contracts, things like that. So we expect it to be a fun game up here as well. And we're excited that you're on the call alongside Gus Johnson and Aqib Talib. Megan Olivi, thank you so much for joining us here on the Vikings Entertainment Network. We cannot wait to see you this weekend.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys there.
For sure.